Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. In a recent video, we covered this article from the February 2025 Liahona by Elder Renlund. And as I was preparing that video, I was looking through the footnotes. I found an interesting quote, which took me to Millennial Star. This is from August 24th, 1899. And it's a discourse by President Lorenzo Snow. And this is not the first time that I've tracked the primary source of an interesting quote and then read the surrounding sentences and paragraphs or the entire thing and found more. And, because what I wanted to share in the video, it was like, maybe there's more to this quote, but I found something completely different, unrelated to the quote that I shared in the video. So I love it when this happens. I love it. Okay, so this has to do with the second coming, has to do with New Jerusalem, and it's just a really interesting quote. And this was during the time that President Lorenzo Snow was in St. George. And if you've been in the church for a while, you're familiar with church history, you know that there was a time where he renewed his emphasis on tithing, which was definitely inspired. And I don't think that this was the famous discourse that he gave, but this was one of, I think, a few different discourses that he gave while he was in St. George. Okay, but let me just show you really quick. Let's scroll down here to the bottom. There's a part that's in all caps. And this is really interesting because we're also going to be talking about tithing in the second coming. This is like a second tithing concept that I think is related to the second coming. Don't worry, we'll cover that in just a minute. So it says, "The time has now come for every Latter-day Saint who calculates to be prepared for the future and to hold his feet strong upon a proper foundation, to do the will of the Lord and to pay his tithing in full." So this right here is the purpose of his discourse. And as you can see, like I said, it's in all caps. So he was really stressing this. And we'll go to the next issue because they would break up articles between issues. So you have to go to the next one. So here's the continuation of it. Okay. Now I have shaken hands with over 800 children, and I want to see those children grow up and become 80, 90, 100, or 140 years of age. I wonder if that ever happened. And this will surely be the case. Of course, it hasn't happened. And this will surely be the case if you will teach them these things that I am talking to you about today. Teach them to pay their tithing while they are young. You mothers, teach your children that when they get any money, they should pay 1/10 of it to the Lord, however little it may be. Educate them to pay their tithing in full. Then we will have a people prepared to go to Jackson County. Okay, this is interesting. And I'm sure that this still applies today. Now, I'm not privy to the tithing situation in the church and how many people pay a full tithe, but I have to wonder if this is still enforced today. I don't know why it wouldn't be. President Nelson's emphasis has been on gathering Israel on both sides of the veil, becoming a Zion people, being a people that are ready and prepared to receive Christ when he comes again. And this makes me think, so we'll come back to this in a minute. This makes me think of Doctrine and Covenants, section 64, verse 23. This is what some people refer to as fire insurance. "Behold, now it is called today until the coming of the Son of Man. And verily it is a day of sacrifice and a day for the tithing of my people. For he that is tithed shall not be burned at his coming." And hence fire insurance. But isn't it interesting singling out one very specific commandment and then associating that with the destruction of the wicked at the second coming, tithing and the burning. And this is also kind of alluded to in Malachi chapter 3, and you could also say chapter 4, but at the beginning it says, "Who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire and like fuller's soap." Later on, the famous scriptures, "Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings," is the answer. Okay, so tithing and abiding the day, not being burned at his coming. And now President Lorenzo Snow talking about tithing and going back to Jackson County. Sorry, over here. Okay, so this is interesting. And oh my gosh, I just had this realization. Oh my gosh. Community of Christ, which owns some of the temple land. They don't own the first temple lot for like the primary temple, but they do own land for the other temples. It's supposed to be a 24 temple complex. And we know that that's still the plan because President David O. McKay had President Alvin R. Dyer go to Missouri, and he did a lot of work with the church's lands in Missouri, including in Independence, where they built the visitor center, and they built it according to the 24 temple complex plan and according to the dimensions that were revealed to Joseph Smith for those temples. The visitor center is a temple in waiting, but we don't have all the land. Now, what's interesting is we've been following Community of Christ. I was following them before the sale of the Kirtland Temple. And the reason why, one of the reasons why, probably the primary reason why they had to sell the temple is because their membership isn't paying tithing. The older generations still are, but not the younger ones. And you can see this when you go to their website. They have a section of their website for financial statements and stuff like that. And that's what they say. It's not a secret. They say it. It's transparent. So we've wondered, and I did a recent video about this, looking at their financial statements. We've wondered, will the time come when they sell their land where they have the spiral temple and which is part of the temple land, and then obviously the auditorium, which is their conference center, which I don't think that's really on temple land. But when last time that we looked at it, there was question and answer section of the website about the recent sale of the Kirtland Temple. And one of the questions was, are we going to sell the world headquarters, the spiral temple land? And they said, at the moment, no. Or currently, that's not the plan. It was something like that. But they didn't say anything like, no, we will never sell the spiral temple because this is a core part of our religion or something like that. No, they just said, well, at the moment, we're not going to. So I'm waiting to see how that plays out. I'm also waiting to see what happens with the Church of Christ temple lot, because they're the ones that own the temple lot for the first temple, the primary temple. And if Community of Christ and other Christian churches are having a problem with membership and people becoming more worldly and not paying tithing, then they may come across the same issue. Tithing. Okay, so then we will have a people prepared to go to Jackson County. President Smith was talking yesterday about the land of Zion. Yes, surely this entire continent is the land of Zion, and the time will come when there will be temples established over every portion of the land, and we will go into these temples and work for our kindred dead night and day, that the work of the Lord may be speedily accomplished, that Jesus may come and present the kingdom to his Father. He is coming soon, too. Okay, now really quick, we got to take another little tangent. I have a spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z, and what is currently row 366 for New Jerusalem / Zion definition, there are different definitions for Zion that are all valid. And one of them is Independence, Missouri, being turned into New Jerusalem and being an actual city, the way that we would think of a city. That is still the plan. And then you have all of North and South America referred to as Zion. And then we have this definition from President Joseph Fielding Smith, where he says, and there is no difference in the meaning whether references to the church or the New Jerusalem. So there's a few definitions of Zion. And that's important to understand because one of the appearances of Christ before the second coming is his appearance to the New Jerusalem. And I think that there's some opinions on that. I have some quotes, but it seems kind of ambiguous. And I think that it could be him just simply visiting the church in the temples, in dreams, possibly conferences that nobody talks about. There could be things like that going on. Furthermore, what I really like about this quote is that he is talking about Jackson County, but then he also talks about Zion being established everywhere. And there's people that think, well, yeah, they point to this one certain scripture saying we're not required anymore to build the temple or to build New Jerusalem. I think I have it over here. In fact, there was another channel that's a lot of people watched where they were making that case. But they think that it's like a complete, like you are completely excused forever from building the New Jerusalem. And that's not true because they forgot to read this scripture, Doctrine and Covenants 101, 17 through 20. Zion shall not be moved out of her place. They that remain and are pure in heart shall return. And the reason why it's not going to be moved out of its place is because that's the site of the Garden of Eden. That's why it's going to become one of the two world headquarters. So this is my spreadsheet called Quotes, Common Misconceptions, row 26, New Jerusalem. The misconception, New Jerusalem, the final center place or center stake, will be in Salt Lake City, not Independence, Jackson County, Missouri. And that's not true. I have all these quotes. In fact, this is probably one of the topics that I have the most quotes for, from Joseph Smith to Wilford Woodruff to John Taylor to Orson Pratt to John Taylor again, James E. Talmage, Lorenzo Snow, which we're actually covering that right now. So many others, Joseph Fielding Smith, and then all the way to, where is it? President Nelson, right here in his book called Daily Joy, published 2020. From the Jerusalem of old and from New Jerusalem in Jackson County. When you go to the church website, you go to Gospel Topics and Questions. Yes, it is Jackson County. So I don't know how they got that so wrong because they're not stupid people that made that YouTube video. But maybe they just didn't research enough. But you don't have to go very far to find the answer. It's in the Doctrine and Covenants student manual. Okay, so back to this. So President Lorenzo Snow talks about Zion being established everywhere, but also talks about Jackson County and yes, how that is still going to happen. So he says, yes, surely this entire continent is the land of Zion, and the time will come when there will be temples established over every portion of the land, and we will go into these temples and work for our kindred dead night and day, that the work of the Lord may be speedily accomplished, that Jesus may come and be present in the kingdom, and present the kingdom to his Father. He is coming soon too. But we will not hear his voice until we build up Jackson County, which, who knows if that's been accomplished by purchasing land there, establishing a stake right there, right next to the visitor center, and then building the visitor center itself, which is meant to be a temple. Now, we should make the preparation for this. We're not only going to have a stake throughout this continent, but we will have it over the whole earth. The whole earth is the Lord's. The time will come when it will be translated and be filled with the Spirit and power of God. The atmosphere around it will be the Spirit of the Almighty. We will breathe that spirit instead of the atmosphere that we now breathe. Now, this is actually a quote that I already had. I got it from another book, but I have this on quotes A through Z under Millennium Earth, like quotes about Earth during the millennium. And he's the only one that I've seen say this about Earth during the millennium, that the atmosphere is going to be changed. And instead of the air that we now breathe, it's going to be spirit. So that's interesting. Okay, but now it is for us to make the preparation that we may be worthy to be called into the house of the Lord and receive our second blessings. I do not want the presidents of stakes to send any person to our temples to receive the highest blessings that have ever been bestowed upon man since the world began, until it can be said of him, he pays his full tithing. When you find an honest, faithful Latter-day Saint who is worthy of receiving his blessings, then send him along. Oh, sorry. When you find an honest... Yeah, okay. I do not care how fast they come. The time is now at hand when the Latter-day Saints can be greatly and abundantly blessed so that they can make the preparation in its fullness. Now, if I say anything more, I'm afraid you may forget what I have said. I will take that back. I said it without thought. You will not forget, you cannot forget what I have said to you here. I do not know how soon we may be called to build up Jackson County, but I feel it is nearer at hand than Latter-day Saints generally believe. Now, just really quick. So we said that this was 1899. Yeah, 1899. It was in the 60s that the Independence Visitor Center was constructed. No, wait. I'll have to check. Let's see. LDS Independence Visitor. Oh my gosh. Visitor Center, Wikipedia. It may have been the 70s, actually. Yeah, dedicated 1971. So 72 years later, that's when it was dedicated. And there was kind of a miracle that happened during the dedication. I have it on my spreadsheets and I've done a video about it, but it was a stormy day. But the weather let up for the dedication was able to happen outside. And as soon as it was done, it started raining. It was like one of those moments, many moments where a miracle like that occurred. But so it wasn't even 100 years later. It was within 100 years that this took place. And the stake that's in Independence, I don't know when that was founded, but I assume that would have been earlier than the Independence Visitor Center, because that's the most important part. It's not necessarily the buildings, it's the people that are there. So that's just kind of interesting. But I feel it is nearer at hand than Latter-day Saints generally believe. When you look upon Jackson County and its surroundings at the present time, it looks like an impossibility. There are perhaps 30,000 people settled there, adjacent to the temple location, and they are doing business very extensively. Looking at it naturally, it would seem as if a favorable arrangement for us to go back there could never arise. And I know that's how some people feel today. And I think that's why you get videos like the one that I'm referring to, where they're like, no, unless like there's new scripture that comes forth, which makes no sense. General Conference and the words of the prophets are scripture. It doesn't have to be canonized and added to the standard works. That's the whole point of having a living prophet. But I know people, they have a hard time picturing it. And so instead of trying to picture how it could happen or just having faith that it'll happen, they'd prefer just to be like, yeah, no, that's not the plan anymore. Okay, so continuing. But when the Lord sets about to accomplish his purposes, he finds it easy to make it effectual. And that's what we saw with the Kirtland Temple, isn't it? I could not picture that we would get the Kirtland Temple back before the millennium. I thought, in my wisdom and my best, educated guess, that there would be a way to get it back. It felt like it was gone forever until Christ came. But that wasn't the case. And it had to do with tithing. My gosh. Now, the finances for Community of Christ are out there. It's on the website. It's transparent. For Church of Christ Temple Lot, it's not. They're a very teeny tiny little church, under 8,000 people, smaller than my audience, my YouTube audience. That's how big it is. It's like a fraction of the size. So for all we know, maybe they're in dire straits right now, and no one would be the wiser. There may be one day where they're like, okay, we can't fund operations anymore. We're not getting enough tithing, or, who knows? There could be internal strife going on. There could be like a schism that pops up where there's like some big disagreement over something. So you guys, but when the Lord sets about to accomplish his purposes, he finds it easy to make it effectual. It will be so in this. I can imagine several ways in which the road would be perfectly clear and the people be very glad for the Latter-day Saints to go back to Jackson County. As I said yesterday, establish the principles of Zion in your hearts, and then you'll be worthy to receive Zion outside with beautiful houses and castles. And that sounds good. Would anybody like to have a castle? And lovely surroundings. And by, go into a city, the streets of which will be made of pure gold, where everything will be just as good and grand as the experience of millions of years has given to those who have to do with such buildings. Just read the last chapter in the Bible and see what a glorious city Latter-day Saints will have the privilege of living in if they are faithful. And we will be able to build cities of our own after a time. It may be thought that I'm going away into the future, but I do not say any more to you than I can find in the revelations of the Lord, in the Doctrine and Covenants, and in the Bible. It is all there, but only those can understand it who have the Spirit of the Lord. And again, I have to wonder, when we have a problem with prophecy and how it's going to be fulfilled, and we want to minimize it or change it or not believe it. And I'm not like casting judgment on anybody, who knows what's in anybody's heart, but this could be a possibility. If you don't have the Spirit and you're afraid and you think that the Lord can't do things easily and in ways that you don't think, maybe there's a spirit issue. The Spirit does not dwell in unholy temples or those that don't believe. So, yeah, so there we go. That's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.